Hey everybody, this is Christy Furio from Keys to the Shop. Welcome to another edition of Shift Break. And today we are talking about, should you be behind the bar right now? And this question is something that I think a lot of baristas ask themselves in the back of their mind as they watch a variety of different staff members come behind the bar during service. And it's something I wanted to talk about today because I think the implications are a little bit more far-reaching than we think. So, today's episode of Shift Break is brought to you by Ernex. They're the ones that are making sure all of your equipment stays clean and the coffee tastes amazing. They've been doing this, creating cleaning products for the coffee industry for over 80 years, and they develop a wide range of products for specific equipment applications, such as products for cold brew, steam wands, grinders, brewers, espresso machines, even the world's first dedicated cleaner for roasters. And what's awesome about them is that as they develop these products, they are working in tandem with professionals all over the world to make sure that what they produce and what you end up using in the cafe is both effective and easy to use, which is really important. I personally have always used Ernex products on the bar and never been disappointed. And I think when you try them out in your cafe, or if you currently use them in the cafe, you will say the same thing. So the bottom line here is that clean equipment makes the best coffee, and the best cleaning products for your coffee equipment are made by Ernex. Go find out more information by visiting their website, ernex.com. This episode is also brought to you by the people who are taking the pain out of managing your inventory and ordering. That is ODEKO. When you run a cafe, staying on top of your inventory and ordering is critical, and ODEKO is here to help with that. They use artificial intelligence to put your point of sale data to work for you, and then ODEKO acts as your virtual purchasing agent to place orders with your vendors for exactly what you need based on your sales history, weather, local events, and it has a more than 90% accuracy rate in predicting future sales. ODEKO's AI obsesses over every item to predict, fulfill, and manage your shop's inventory. They've helped their partners cut waste by 50%, reduce food costs by 9%, and saves owners about 2 to 5 hours per week. So now, if you want to cut waste, save time, and streamline your ordering and inventory systems and take the pain out of it, then you need to sign up for ODEKO. Find out more information and try it out in your store by visiting this link, odeko.com/keys to the shop. All right, so today we are talking about people coming behind the bar. And, this episode is, a pet peeve of mine. I understand it sounds like, how petty can Chris get? But I think that this is actually a really big deal. It's a phenomenon of a cafe, especially if the cafes are located next to the headquarters or attached to headquarters where there's the roastery and there's trainings and hirings and interviews and all that stuff. Baristas are used to seeing the cafe, their workspace, turned into a commissary, and it could be anywhere from the office staff to the roastery staff to whoever, this gaggle of staff kind of comes in behind the bar when they're not on shift as a barista and they're not contributing anything to the shift. They gather for lunch, they talk with friends, grab coffee or water, but they end up wandering into the middle of work that the baristas are doing, or into the workspace at least. There's a palatable frustration that baristas experience when there's this body behind the bar. It's not quite like when a customer steps behind the bar, but it's almost. It's like customer behind the bar light, if you will. You're known and trusted, but it still makes me want to ask the question, should you be behind the bar right now? And for the most part, the answer to this question is, in my opinion, no. Although it's not said all the time by the baristas, this herd of office workers and roastery workers and other tangential staff that are not clocked in and working that particular shift end up communicating disrespect to the workspace, the barista workspace, in a way that a barista would never be allowed to do in an office or a roastery environment. And so throughout all of my career, and I'll bet you have experienced this too, again, this has been a reality. And this is not only the middle management and production roasters and all this stuff. It's also owners as well. Owners oftentimes treat coffee bars like their personal kitchens. not treating behind the bar as a sacred space, basically, that the baristas are in charge of. That includes all the stuff behind it, where it goes, how much of it they have on hand at any moment. Not treating it that way communicates disrespect. So let's go back to the idea that a barista would never be allowed to do this in another context. Imagine with me if a barista wandered into a manager's office and reached a few times in front of their computer, the manager's computer, for some staples or a pen or, whatever happened to be on the desk at the moment, and just kind of blocked their view from the schedule that they're working on or the spreadsheet that they're working on. Maybe a barista has done that once to you, but now imagine that happens every day at a particular time. Imagine that you've got a critical deadline to meet on a project and the boss wants you to finish it, and then 3 or 4 baristas are kind of milling around in the office with nothing to do. They're not contributing to your project. They're just there because they like the ambiance. They just like your office. That's it. The boundaries will be made pretty quickly if that ever happens. Like, hey, we're working on some stuff here. When from now on, baristas cannot come into the office unless the door is open, and even then, we just need to keep it as a work environment, guys. Just want to make that clear. You can imagine the conversation, right? The same is true for roasting. Imagine I go into the roastery and start bagging my own coffee that I'm going to buy at the POS and take home for personal use, right? Or I start roasting, or I start asking the roaster questions while they're tracking a roast, blocking them from access to their station, sort of distracting them from their job all the time. And mid-roast, this is going to be a problem. Again, boundaries are going to be made real quick. Like, here are the do's and don'ts of your presence in the roastery, because these spaces, for some reason, are given way more respect than the bar is. I think it's basically that these places are private and not public. They're not like the bar. They're not social places necessarily. They're not open to the public the way the bar is. And I think that leads us to feel that, and I think this is kind of the incorrect notion, that the bar is not as consequential as the manager's office or the roaster's workstation. I think this is a naturally occurring thing when it comes to a coffee bar. It's easy to consider it sort of a hangout space, and that the barista's station is sort of everybody's station. But this is distracting. It often gets in the way of good workflow, and if you want your barista to take their job seriously, you need to take their job seriously. That goes for everyone on the staff. Mutual respect for workstations and areas. And I want to give some guidelines here that's going to help out a little bit, I think. First, I think you should always ask permission. You just say, is it okay if I get a coffee or grab a bottle of water or something like that? Just asking permission does a world of good. And giving people the authority to say, not at the moment, what can I get you? That goes a long way. I am of the camp that says, I don't care if you can work the bar and make the drink even better than I can. If I'm working the espresso machine, I feel like I will make your drink. I don't want you behind the bar, because then what if we get a rush? Now you're mid-drink and I have to navigate around you. Chances are you're not willing to take on the load of the third on shift or fourth, whatever. So it's better to just ask permission and let the barista, who is the expert on what's happening in the moment, tell you whether it's safe or not for you to do that. I would prefer it just be said to people, hey, don't come behind the bar, let the baristas get you what you need. In absence of that policy, asking permission is great. Now, if you're going to come behind the bar, read the situation, right? There are emergencies, there are things that need to be done sometimes, and when you're behind the bar, you need to read the situation and get yourself in and out as quick as you can, and don't hang out. Don't just prop yourself up on the bar. And also don't come into a stressful situation and get all, and be all fresh and chirpy with people that are stressed out and in the middle of a rush. It's easy to become sort of a thorn in the side and put gas on the fire, so to speak. Morale is not helped by that. When you're behind the bar, you need to take on a mantle of urgency. And when you're behind there, you can't just not help guests. You now work there. You are not invisible. There's no cloak protecting you. Just like when a barista is out on the floor taking care of bussing a table, a barista sometimes thinks that because they're on mission to take care of this table, they don't have time for guests. The opposite is true. You are actually closer to the guest now, so you're more on call. So if you're an office staff worker and you're behind the bar and you see a customer see you and you know that they're going to ask you a question, don't just walk away from them. You need to be present and help them. When you're behind the bar, you need to help out. Most of the time, it's more helpful to help out with back bar, non-customer facing things as much as possible. Dishes, brewing coffee, you can bus tables, things like that. Mostly because you don't know what's going on that day, what you're out of that day. There are certain things that are different each shift, and baristas are paid to pay attention to and curate that particular shift. That's what they do. And so if you follow those guidelines, I think those are some practical ways that you can really show some respect for the barista workstation and not just treat it like this commissary kitchen or a personal resource for personal drinks and lunches and hangout time. We need to communicate respect and professionalism, and that means holding ourselves and those we lead accountable for the messages that we send with our actions. So in the end, I hope that this episode has maybe stirred something in you to revisit the way that you are presenting yourself. If this is you, if you're a manager, a tangential staff member like in the office or roastery, and you see yourself doing this, then I think that it's time for a conversation with your staff and maybe set some policies according to some suggestions in this episode, or just talk to your staff. Let them guide you as to what's appropriate. Because I guarantee, if this has been happening in your cafe, there's a lot of thoughts that people have about it, and it's worth having a conversation about. So I hope that this has been helpful for you. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you here next week for another edition of Shift Break, from keys to the shop.